So Bernie Sanders highlighted an incredibly heartbreaking death from lack of Medicare for all. This is one of our wonderful Justice Democrats, Amy Vilela, telling the story of her daughter, Shalyn. So let's watch, and then we're going to discuss it. And massive credit to Bernie Sanders for shining a light on this story, because this is a story that, really touched many of us on the left and spurred many of us into political action. Take a look.
The last conscious moments of my daughter's life were alone in the back of an ambulance, dying a needless, painful death because of our nation's barbaric for-profit healthcare system. And she says that I'm begging them to do some testing and they won't do anything. They said that I need to go get insurance and see a specialist. And all I could do was just tell her, fight, Shalyn, fight, please, please fight. Don't die. And right before she passed in my arms, I told her I love you so much, and you will not have died in vain. My life changed in 2015 when I experienced what 35,000 other families experience every year. My daughter Shalyn was 22 years of age. She had a blood clot. A preventable disease. We're talking about a couple $1,000s of treatment. I don't want any other person to go through that pain for the profits of a corporation. So that's how I got started in activism. I threw my first healthcare rally after that. And I knew then the power that people had if they started organizing and started sharing stories. All of us have heard of it. And once we find that commonality amongst our community members, then we can start having those human conversations and start talking about the solutions. We are not Democrat versus Republican. We are people who are in the same boat. We're all struggling the same way.
What Amy has had to go through, no parent should have to go through. And what she has done, which is incredibly courageous, rather than just accepting her grief and mourning the loss of her beautiful daughter, in memory of her daughter, she is doing everything that she can to make sure no other parent has to experience what she has experienced. Everybody has a story. Everybody knows somebody or is somebody in this room who is working 2 or 3 jobs in order to provide for the family. And there is the story of somebody who's getting sick today and not going to the doctor because they don't know how they can pay the bill. The elderly who are cutting their prescription drugs in half, their pills in half, because they can't afford the outrageous cost of medicine in this country. And the international embarrassment of the United States being the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. Health care is a human right, not a privilege.
So Amy Vilela is a wonderful Justice Democrat. She ran for office. She didn't win, but stay tuned because I think she has a tremendously bright future. And her story is particularly touching because this is an instance where we know where she stands, because it is deeply, deeply, deeply personal to her. She lost her daughter because her daughter was rejected from getting the care that she needed because she didn't have insurance, and her daughter passed away. Under a Medicare for All system, they can't say, hey, you don't have insurance, so go get some and talk to a specialist or whatever. She was at the emergency room, and they're basically shooing her away. Under a Medicare for All system, that 100% doesn't happen, and Shalyn is alive today. And you know who knows that better than anybody else? Amy Vilela. And Amy says she spoke to Nina Turner after this happened to her, and Nina really changed her life and told her, listen, you got to channel that grief and channel that anger and despair you have for what happened to your daughter, and you have to turn that into action, and you have to turn that into activism, and you have to stop at nothing to change this system, fix this system, and do everything you can. And listen, this is what Justice Democrats is. Amy Villela is a brave, courageous person who saw firsthand what happens in our broken healthcare system. And she said, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never run for office before. I'm just a regular person. I don't get it. But she was spurred by that pain and that anguish of losing her daughter because of our healthcare system. She was spurred to action. And she jumped right in the deep end. And she fought incredibly hard. And she did a wonderful job. And like I said, her story's not done yet. It ain't nowhere near done. Because if there's one thing in this life that is a real rule of thumb that's concrete, it's that persistence works. They can't deny you if you keep showing up. You just got to keep showing up. Just keep showing up. Head down, grind it out, keep showing up. Just keep showing up. Come on, just keep going. And that's what Amy's doing. And, listen, man, Bernie Sanders is putting her story front and center to make the rock-solid case that Medicare for All is the answer. And how many people has Bernie spoke to around this country who have told Bernie their nightmare stories with our healthcare system? I've told you guys my nightmare story with the system. You know, my father, he didn't have insurance. He was having back pain. He kept going to the chiropractor. A chiropractor, being, the charlatan he was, kept telling my dad, come back, we'll work it out. Don't worry, we'll make your back pain go away. We're doing everything we can. That you're doing the right treatment. And eventually my dad went to the emergency room, and he learned that back pain he was experiencing was cancer that had metastasized from his lungs to his back. And he was dead not even a month later. He did some surgery. They removed some of the tumor, but it was too little too late. And it was probably 2 or 3 weeks from when he entered the emergency room, the emergency room until his death. If we had a Medicare for All system, I can guarantee you his first stop wouldn't have been a chiropractor. The whole idea of the chiropractor is, I don't have insurance. Maybe I'll save money if I go to a chiropractor. And in his mind, because he's not that educated on these issues, he had no idea that a chiropractor is not a real doctor. He had no idea that it's alternative medicine. He had no idea that they're glorified backcrackers. Listen, nothing against chiropractors if you know what you're going for. If you know it's alternative medicine and you know it's a glorified backcracker / massage therapist. My dad was not the brightest. He didn't know that. He thought he's going to a real doctor. That prevented him from going to a real doctor, and now he's no longer here. It's possible they could have caught the cancer at stage 2. Instead, he entered the hospital with stage 4 and died soon thereafter. So he's one of those 30 to 45,000 people that die every year because they don't have access to basic health care. Shilin is one of those 30 to 45,000 who die every year because they don't have access to basic health care. Don't wait for somebody you know to be added to that list. We got to fight. We got to get Medicare for All. We know who's leading the charge. We know who means it. We know what the solution is. It is honestly, flat out, insulting to our intelligence when other candidates and when the media pretends like there's still a question. Acts like, well, what do you mean? Some people say public option is the best. Some people say Medicare for All extra is the best. Some people say Medicare for those who want it is the best. Or as Elizabeth Warren says, the core of where all the Democrats want to go is the same. We all want universal coverage. No, Elizabeth Warren, that is not the same. Having the for-profit private health insurance companies run the show is categorically and substantively different from having a Medicare for All system. You know who knows this? Bernie Sanders. You know who the real fighter is? Bernie Sanders. You know who needs to be president?